Hello, everyone. Welcome back to New Comic Book Day Book Club. As always, I'm here with John. What's up, John?
Hey, yo!
And joining us tonight, last minute guest. We got Bearded Comic Bro jumping in to help out.
Thanks
What's up,
for
man?
having me, man.
Good to have you again.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been since I think last time we were talking, I was on was when we were talking Wind issue 2.
Yeah, which
that's
wrapped up at this point. So
it is.
So first of all, I do feel the need to reiterate, since now John is monetized. I don't have the fancy ass StreamYard, and I can't send cool thank you videos of his kids or John's robot cursing at you. But just as a reminder, any super chats that do come through during the show are donated to literacy campaigns for charity. So no pressure, no expectations, but we just haven't talked about it in a little while. So figured I'd remind everyone that that's the plan. Saying hi to people in the chat. We got Todd, Christian, hanging out, tailgating, Comic Man Andy coming over from our other show. PJ King, what's up? Gray Matter Hulk, who says, is this the movie show? I mean, it's a very blurred line nowadays, so could say that it is. We are talking about two big books this week because we couldn't really... No, not Daredevil.
Oh, sorry, wrong one.
Two big #1 books this week because we couldn't... No, not Daredevil. Only if I had a copy to show it this week.
This the one right before it.
No, not Daredevil.
I don't. That was a couple weeks ago, so I don't have that in my stack right here. So
my LCS got him late, so I actually picked up both this week. TJ, no, he does not. He's not asking.
I don't want the fancy StreamYard. I was just making fun of John. Immortal Biggie Shack and Kachung, welcome, guys. Thanks for hanging out. So yeah, we really couldn't decide because there's two major event releases from the big two publishers, and John is spoiling my intro. King in Black #1 and Batman Catwoman #1. So we decided, why the hell not? Let's just talk about both and not necessarily compare them, but maybe we will not be able to help it.
Well, and I also think it's hilarious that we pick two huge books this week, but everybody's talking about it.
Everyone only cares about Daredevil. But do they care about it just for the spec? Probably, because
they're not talking about it for story. Let's break down the issue. They're talking about it for spec for some silly reason. It's been good all along, people.
Yes. Been good all along. I mean, I think a lot of people have consistently said it's the best Marvel ongoing right now. So no surprise that it's interesting.
It's one of the few Marvel ongoing that I actually pull. So
yeah. There you
go. Since I don't really pull any big two books anymore, that's the only reason I don't have it on my pull list, which is why I did not get a copy, because as everyone knows, it's sold out everywhere. So why don't we start with King in Black then, because if we're talking about Marvel.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay.
Null came.
He certainly did. He showed up. So basically the story is that I mean, this is a direct tie-in from Venom. So if you haven't been reading Venom or not up to date for Venom, I read the first 12 issues or so I have not continued with it. So I was, I mostly understood what was happening, but I could see how if you just pick this up as a new #1, you might be like, what the hell is going on? Which I have criticized a number of #1s recently for that reason, where they are not friendly to new readers. But having said that, basically it is the culmination of this Null storyline where he is coming to Earth seemingly to get Eddie Brock and his symbiote, who has enlisted the help of the Avengers and the X-Men and all the rest of the superheroes, because there's going to be this great invasion of Earth from the king of the symbiotes. So it really throws you right into the action, I would say, for the most part, with the Avengers kind of preparing for the first wave much like the first wave of COVID, which are just like a bunch of flying dragon things that they try to bomb with little success because they still breach through. So there's way more than they thought. But Iron Man is very, very sure of himself.
I thought those were the demon things from Batman vs Superman.
Yeah. And then like there's a bunch of spoilers that we'll get into. So by the way, if you have not read it and don't want spoilers, there's some pretty big reveals in this first issue. It is just like, I don't know where they're going with this story because so much happened in this issue.
Yeah, my feeling was that like I thought everything that I thought they would draw out over like 6 issues happened in one.
Yeah.
Which is a wonderful change of pace, but it was a lot to take in.
You see Venomized Celestials. Null does show up. He covers the entire Earth in this like cloak of symbiote stuff to blot out the sun. He kills the Sentry like it's nothing.
Dude, yeah, the Sentry thing, that bummed me out big time.
So yeah, they're like Captain America's all sure of himself. He's like, ha. Once Null shows up, he's like, we got the trump card in our back pocket, and we're gonna send the Sentry after you, who's Earth's mightiest, most powerful hero. And Null just like a paperclip just rips him in half.
That splash page, yeah.
Now, when he does it, he as a villain he monologues. He says, "I am the Void." Do you believe that this is admitting that the Void portion of Sentry has been connected to Null all along?
Maybe.
Because that's what he says. He does it, and then he stands there and he says, "I am the Void." But he's basically admitting to saying a lot of things. I'm the darkness inside of you. That darkness bows to me. I'm the Lord of the Abyss, the God of the symbiotes. I am the Void. I don't know if he's speaking metaphorically or literally.
Yeah, if he's saying like, I don't care about Sentry's Void because I am the Void.
Right. I'm the greater void. I'm the empty space, right? Or if he's literally saying, I am the Void, the villain. Which I felt like people had been specking on, because I know issues of the Sentry miniseries, the various miniseries, have gone up in value because of those little clips that show the Sentry moving much like a symbiote.
So basically, after that, Eddie Brock has kind of been in hiding, kind of communicating with everyone telepathically. The X-Men show up, they fight for a bit, and then Eddie basically says, we're going to give him what he wants because there's no beating him at this point, and I'm going to go and give myself to him. At which point Null's like, oh, isn't that cute? I'll take your symbiote back with me, but you're not the Brock I'm looking for. So he's looking for Dylan, his son, who Eddie put in this like underground nuclear bunker chamber. He then takes Venom from him and then just drops him from the sky, and that's how the first issue ends.
All right, so you ready to go on to Batman Catwoman? No.
Yeah. So that's kind of the rundown. I know it was a lot, but like I said, there was a lot in that first issue.
Yeah, I mean, I legitimately thought they were going to draw this out. And I think one of the things I'm happy about is to see that they've hurried that story up, because it genuinely makes me feel like I have no clue where they can go from here.
Right. So clearly it's going in a much different direction than like we probably expected it to, because it did feel that way. It felt like, oh, I thought this was going to be like, I thought the fight with Null was going to be the culmination of this, not the first issue.
Yeah, it definitely feels like that. It feels like they almost drop you right into the third act of what you would imagine for King in Black to have happened. So I'm curious to see. I'm curious to see a couple things of where it goes in the run. Like, where are they going to take it now? And then also, how much do I have to read outside of the main run to know what's going on?
Much like Ten of Swords, if you have to read 37 books in 3 months, like how many people are going to be willing to do that, especially right now, where a lot of people are tight for money. But again, like I said at the beginning of this, if I'm a DC fan or an indie fan and I'm hearing all this stuff about King in Black and how much of a big deal it is, and I'm like, well, I'll give it a shot, this would have turned me straight off to it, because like you said, it throws you right into the third act, and you're like, you must feel like I missed something.
Yeah, I had a friend who picked up the Null snapshot because he kind of hopped in on it of like, I don't know what's going on. I haven't been reading Venom. I haven't been reading Marvel. And is that the
Marvel Tales reprint thing that came out today?
So it was like, it was what they dropped out to say, hey, if you haven't been reading, you want to hop on, here's the good kind of segue in. And he said reading that helped him hop in, because I'm flip-flop from you, Alec. I didn't get into Venom until War of the Realms. So I think it was Venom Island was when I kind of started picking up that. So I'm tracking along with it, where I feel like if you weren't tracking along it, you definitely need that to kind of fill you in, to be like, because it drops you in and you're like, wait, what, who, huh, what's going on?
Yeah, I think the reprint book was a very good idea on Marvel's part, but I don't know why they didn't put it out last week, especially because it was like an $8 book.
Right.
And like how much was King of Black? Probably
$6.
Yeah, so
$5.99.
You're going to spend $14 in 1 week on 2 books. I don't know. I mean, I did clearly, but
I mean, I mentioned it in the pull list that I was like, it's an $8 book, and if you're up on Venom, I don't think you need it. It seems like a money grab, and so for me,
it was a cover buy for me.
Yeah. Biggie says we've been waiting for a year. For me, I feel like I've been waiting since Venom 3, when we first met Null, and we had the like subtle, smaller story with the symbiotes have wings now. I've been waiting since then for this story. And it was the one thing that bugged me about Absolute Carnage, an event that I thought was really, really cool, but that felt like it ended with this idea of, oh, we're just setting up another event.
Right.
And we got to wait another year for that.
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, what were your thoughts as far as it as an issue standalone?
I would give this a very high grade. I think I'd probably give this an 8.5 out of 10. Like, I thought this was, I mean, it's going to obviously be completely dependent on how this story as a whole fits together. But as far as an issue number 1, I might even go as high as 9. Like, this issue did things I wasn't expecting, went in ways I didn't expect, delivered what I really wanted from an event. And I mean, you had the Avengers, you had the X-Men, you had Venom, you had Null arrives, the whole Celestial sequence was pretty awesome.
But again, like that whole Celestials thing could have been like a full issue, and it could have been, and like there was so many reveals in this book that was like.
But for me, it felt like that was the point. Was like he was going to do all the stuff people expect from an event in one issue, and then tell a completely different story, go in a different direction with it, which is like, I thought that was a ballsy move. So I give a ton of respect for that. And sure, you might have wanted a whole issue on the Celestials, but for me, it's like, yeah, it is what it is. The story is about Null and Dylan and probably Spider-Man and Eddie. So like, I hope that that's where it digs down across the 5 issues of King in Black.
Well, go ahead. Oh, I was going to say, for me, like Stegman, his strengths are in those big splash pages, the action stuff. I am not a fan of how he draws faces. So I would have liked to have seen more like fighting with stuff like that rather than, and I know you don't necessarily write for your artist, but I mean, you should write to their strengths a bit. And I don't know, maybe Donny Cates loves the way he draws faces, and there's nothing really wrong with them. It's just not my cup of tea. But I mean, if this whole series is pedal to the metal like this, where it's just like throwing stuff in your face constantly, is it going to get exhausting?
I don't know if it would. I feel like because of what issue 1 was, how issue 1 came out of the gate, that I feel like they almost, for me, they have to keep the pedal to the metal, because I'm going to sit there and go, did they blow their load too early? Like, was it too much in issue 1, you know?
Because if issue 2 is a big conversation for 18 pages and then a little bit of action at the end, you're going to say, well, this is boring all of a sudden after the adrenaline rush of the first issue.
And I think they can't. I think if you are, especially if they're trying to get people who are not avidly reading it, they're like, hey, we want to pick this up to get into King in Black. I think you can get on board with it being jumping you into the third act. Like you said, you haven't been reading the latest Venom, but you have an idea of what's going on.
Sure.
And I think that's fine. With this, because now you're going to say, okay, this is what I'm for. But then if they now pull off the gas a little bit, I think people go, wait a second, what are we doing now? Like, we got all this, and then I think that's when I would almost change the grade a little bit of like, I have it as a higher grade, but then as the series goes on, I'd almost have to change that grade if they let off the gas. I'm like, well, then maybe they should have put the, spread out a whole issue of the Sentinel. Like,
Yeah. So like basically your grade is with an asterisk at the moment.
Yes.
I think it has to be, though. I mean, an event is not a single issue, and it's so dependent on all these other factors. I think it's a great kickoff, and my hope is that a talented team like Stegman and Cates know that, like, you're going to have issues that are more emotional and require less epic action sequences across a huge city where the Avengers and the X-Men are all showing up and doing this thing. And you're going to have issues that are big events like this one. And I think this kicks it off huge. And then I think they can take it down a notch and go back and forth. And it allows also for all of these tie-ins to be their standalone stories, right? What were the Marauders doing when the planet was in this symbiote cocoon? What was Namor doing under the ocean during the it? My assumption is this is going to be one of those where you don't necessarily have to read all those tie-ins. You can follow Venom and the main story, right, and get what's primary to what is the primary story. And if you want, you can see what are my favorite characters doing during this clearly world sort of cataclysmic event.
Couple of comments I want to touch on in the chat here. Gorvidal says the problem with the events is price and the quality of the story. By the late 80s, these events got old and pricey, even though the books were $1. These stories were weak and uneventful. And then PJ King follows it up with Marvel and DC have way too many events. The crossover event feels less special as a result. There should be a moratorium on comic events for 2 years.
It's interesting that he even says that, because we're not even talking about, like, DC has almost swept their own event under the rug here, because they were doing the Endless Winter. They were promoting it in the fall as the next big event after Joker War. And then they kind of backpedaled their promotion of it. And now it's just kind of floating by under the radar of this.
Yeah, well, DC doesn't know what they're doing. I mean, right, they moved away from 5G. Now they're doing Future State, and they're having all sorts of problems, and shops are stopping carrying their books. But I think the idea of events as a whole, the problem is, because I don't disagree that, like, they feel less special because they happen all the time and they're so expensive and there's so many books you need to buy. But the problem is, the reason there are so many is because the companies are making money on them. And the companies are making money on them because comic fans are buying them. So I'm not saying that Gorvidal and PJ King aren't speaking with their wallets, but a lot of comic fans I know and I've talked to complain about stuff like that, myself included, and still go and buy the damn books. So, as long as they are successful for the companies are going to keep doing them, because that's how they are profitable.
And good or bad, we're talking about them. And these are books that I feel like these are both books that typically you might not pull if it wasn't for you're having a show about book club. Like, I think, like, that's like, and I think there's and that's what goes to your point of DC and Marvel. Like, people are going to read it because they want to know what's going on and be able to have their voice and have their opinions on what we're doing, whether you like it or not.
And this is the other point, is that Gray Matter Hulk says, is any of it going to matter? Because that is a fair question, because how many events in the last 10 years have had a lasting impact on the universe?
I totally agree with that. And I think, but I think, Todd Christian says crossover fatigue, but X of Swords. I mean, X of Swords is an example for me of they did some pretty big changes. They killed some characters. They moved characters off world. They changed the island of Krakoa, and they changed some of the dynamics there.
Yeah, for now. I mean, remember when Scarlet Witch said no more mutants?
Well, yeah, but if you're expecting that to any of these things to be there's no permanence in comics. Period. So if you're expecting things to make permanent changes, but I'm just saying like long term, meaning over the course of a few years, you have a long term change. I don't know that I'm looking for a comic to permanently change the universe, because I think the truth is we're in a nostalgia industry, and that nostalgia doesn't want change, right? Nostalgia wants, like, I want to pick up Batman and it's still my Batman. It's not Dick Grayson is now Batman. I don't want to. Where's Bruce Wayne? I want my Bruce Wayne.
It's not future state.
Exactly.
And I think that's the challenge in a nostalgia industry like comics, which is a lot of people come back to it expecting to find what they fell in love with originally.
Yeah, even a lot of people who have never left comics but started reading in the 70s or 80s still have that feeling of like, I still want the comics to feel the same way.
Yeah. For me, like I legitimately feel like this was a setup for a really solid event, and I think it could. There's obviously a ton of ways it could go. I am supremely disappointed that they killed the Sentry so nonchalantly, and I'm very hopeful that they figure out a way to fix that, because I like that character a ton, and it seemed like a throwaway moment. But wow, what a cool moment! Even as a Sentry fan, I wasn't like, they've ruined the Sentry. I was like, dang, that was badass.
Right, and I think that was kind of the effect he was going for, is that the Sentry is touted as being God, basically. Like, right. His power is unimaginable. And the fact that he was dispatched so easily is just, it was like, he was basically used as a foil to show how powerful Null is.
It almost reminds me of another big kind of event series where they made characters just look like chumps sometimes that John didn't like.
You're talking about Deceased? I think what I would say the difference for me, and that's a great point, phenomenal point. The difference for me is I felt like they made those characters seem stupid, and I don't know that any of these characters feel stupid.
No. They just didn't. They could not have been prepared for.
They were overconfident. He portrayed him as overconfident, like because
I think even Eddie is like, I feel like Eddie's known all along Venom's going to come, or sorry, Null's going to show up here, and there's nothing we can do about it. Eddie even has this resigned attitude of, we're screwed. Like, it doesn't matter. We're polishing brass in the Titanic at this point. And I think it was cool to see that reality. Now, the Avengers might have had some hopes and some plans, and they set some things in action, but Eddie was like, it's still not going to work.
Well, and I do think you get that like Captain America's like his kind of cocky attitude of like, all right, cool, you're here. We're going to play our ace in the hole. And then it starts to go like, and I know, Al, you said you don't like how Stegman does faces, but man, I felt it in I think it was Iron Man's face when Storm, that sequence with Storm, like I felt like the emotion of like, crap, we're out of our luck here.
To be clear, I just don't like them stylistically. I don't think he is bad at conveying emotion or telling a story with the faces. I just don't like the way they look.
Personally. Oh, I respect that. Then. Okay, cool. But like, yeah, I mean, when you feel that emotion, you're like, and I think like that for me is like where they go, where the Avengers and the X-Men kind of go, shoot, we aren't at the same level where Venom was, where Eddie was like, guys, we're screwed
Yeah.
no matter what we do. I think they're kind of like, we're the Avengers, we're X-Men, we got this.
It's almost like, because they talk about a first, second, and third wave, and no one is prepared for it, and everyone underestimates it. It's almost like an allegory for COVID.
Whoa. I have a random side question. Eddie's been wearing the symbiote as clothing for a really long time. It can morph into any clothing that he's got. Why is he wearing boxers?
I mean, wouldn't you?
Freeing. It's more freeing
than briefs. I mean, you expect him to be like butt ass naked under there?
For me, I felt like, why would you wear clothes if you have a symbiote that can make any clothing you want, and that's always going to be what you're wearing?
So, knowing what you know of the symbiote, what's the one area of your body you would maybe want something in between you?
At that point, you are so bonded with this thing. I mean, think about how close Eddie is with this symbiote. Like, they share everything.
I mean, I think you're still gonna want that. I think, John, if you're a mascot, you're not gonna just rock the mascot costume with nothing on underneath, because
conversely, maybe the symbiote is the one who's like, bro,
put on some drawers.
That's the highlight of the show for me. Counterpoint,
bro.
That might have been the best counterpoint you've ever had. The symbiote's like, whoa, I don't want to go there. Yeah. We're close.
We're close, but we should still have some boundaries.
Everything.
I don't want to get all up in there.
So, anyways, I just felt like I wanted to take the show in that direction.
Also, it's a comic book, and it's not shirtless bear fighter, and they can't show Eddie's schlonger.
Yeah.
DC Black Label, they could. And then it would be reacted, and then they can't. Then retracted, and they can't do it. So
then it's just not continuity anymore, so it doesn't matter. Symbiote Viagra.
Gorilla Todd said the point John said about people wanting Bruce Wayne as Batman. I meant people accept him being Spidey because he referenced Miles Morales earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not that kind of comic reader in general. I really like it when artists and take a dramatic turn with things and really push the envelope. I want to see that kind of. I dig big moves, and this issue feels like it's full of big universe-changing moves. And to Alex's point, they're probably going to get to the end of the story and everything's going to be back to normal, hunky-dory. But I think you're going to see some huge impact on Eddie, some huge impact on Dylan, and some big impact in those characters in that Spidey Venom universe. Yeah. I don't know that we're going to see huge changes in Hickman's X-Men universe or in the Avengers universe, perhaps, but certainly I think this will have lasting impact.
To Gorilla Todd's point, I think Marvel did the whole Miles Morales thing very cleverly, though, because he never replaced Peter. He is alongside. He is a counterpoint. He is a complement to Peter. He is his own character who also happens to have spider powers. Whereas if there were two Batmen, maybe that would be a different story. I mean, Nightwing is basically Batman at this point.
Right.
So I don't know. But yes, I agree that Miles was definitely an exception. Speaking of Batman, should we transition over? Unless you have anything else to say about this?
Did you guys want to give a grade of what you thought of this one?
Sure.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna go with an 8, with an asterisk.
Yeah, I'm about there. I'm floating around that 8, maybe 8.2. It was very entertaining issue, but there were so many question marks about what it's leading into that it might go higher, might go lower. So
right. I mean, yeah, like I said, it's got to keep the gas down. Like for me, otherwise I'm gonna be like, they went too quick, too fast in issue 1.
So, moving on, Batman, Catwoman.
I want to ask before we dive deep. Obviously, I'm super pumped that you got this issue, Greg, because I know that Alec and I seem to be the like lone people in the community consistently saying like, come on, let's not throw out all of Tom King's Batman. It was not all just shit. It was not all just horrible. There was a lot of good stuff in there. It just derailed. And there's a lot of reasons why you could say it derailed, a lot of things you could hate about it. But like, I think you can't throw it all out as just saying it was all sucky.
So, first of all, interestingly, we had Tom King on the last Mainframe show on last Friday, and who knows if this is true, but the way he tells the story about him leaving Batman was that DC basically said, hey, we want you to weave in all this 5G future state stuff into your storyline. So you can keep doing that, stay on Batman and keep doing that, or we can take you off Batman. You can do this other mini-series where you can do whatever you want. So it wasn't so much like your book isn't selling anymore. It's just that DC wanted the book to go in a different direction for the sake of the overall brand and the events that he wasn't interested in doing. So take that for what you will, but I thought that was an interesting perspective that I had not heard.
Yes. Which was a great panel, by the way.
Yeah, really, really interesting, and a lot of joking around with those guys.
Oh yeah. I put a ton of the blame for what I'm disappointed with at DC these days on just crappy editorial, and I think
for sure.
But at the same time, I will happily say, like, the second half of his Batman had just wacky, weird crap that never got resolved. Like, it's just a ton of it. Like, hey, we're going to have a dream sequence, and then the next week we're not really going to reference that. And then he's going to go on this little acid trip for a couple of shoots, and then we're going to go back and do something different. And, like, none of it tied to anything. It was all just bonkers. And I felt like it didn't have any of the impact that the first half had leading into the wedding. Like, that stuff I thought was so well executed. I felt like I don't know, the wheels came off.
Having said that, would one of you guys like to try to recap this issue?
I'll give it a try.
All right, good luck.
Yeah. So this issue ties several timelines together simultaneously in the Batman universe. We have, I think the first one is the old Catwoman, right?
Yeah.
And then we start with an older Catwoman driving down the road, listening to some Christmas music, right? Silent Night, yeah. And she's driving along. She's got her little cat with her in the car. Then we cut to Andrea Beaumont from Mask of the Phantasm having a little Christmas meal with Bruce. Then we sort of jump back and forth between those moments. And then a third moment seems to be thrown in because Bruce is talking to Andrea and saying, oh, Alfred's dead. But then there's Alfred right there. And then Alfred apparently, perving on them.
Watching them bone, yeah.
Full lurk mode. Old lady Catwoman goes to a retirement community and meets an old guy that we're not quite sure who it is. Has a little conversation with that person. We jump to Batman and Catwoman running around Gotham trying to find Andrea Beaumont's son. So we're kind of skipping around between those two moments. Let's see. They're tracking the kid to, I don't remember the crocodile guy's name. Anybody?
Sewer King.
Sewer King.
Okay. The Sewer King.
Also Andrea Beaumont. I don't want to be that guy, John, but
and they're basically tracking the kid, Ms. Beaumont's son. And then somehow we skip to this timeline where Catwoman looks like she's trying to rob a rich guy, crime lord, and Joker is sitting there waiting for her, which feels to me like a third timeline now.
Yeah, so I think that's in the past.
Yeah. Joker and her have a conversation all about how she's really a bad guy. She's not a good guy. This whole boning Batman thing is not going to work out in the long run. And now we've got three timelines that we're sort of juggling here. We've got Catwoman trying to find Andrea Beaumont's kid, but then we got right next door Catwoman talking to Joker on a rooftop about, am I a villain or am I Batman's girlfriend or am I some mixture of both? And then we jump to Catwoman talking to creepy old guy about their grandkids and all that kind of stuff. We find Andrea Beaumont's son Jokerized under a bridge, and Andrea very upset. And then we jump to the greatest drawing in the book, which I needed more of that, but apparently it's Catwoman ready to bone. And then at the end sequence here, we are sort of revealed the idea that this old man is the Joker, and Catwoman is there to kill him because of Bruce is dead now and what happened to Andrea Beaumont and all these things. Catwoman is there for vengeance because nobody's going to be able to stop her anymore. And we get this cool splash page of her embracing creepy Joker who looks like he's about to take a bite.
Yeah, it looked very deceased.
It looked like that, like Tom King's like, hey, Tom Taylor, write this panel real quick. I'm gonna have to clay draw that.
And then we cut to Wayne Manor graveyard and somebody digging up the Phantasm costume out of a coffin. And we cut to then Andrea listening to the same Silent Night song, not really doing anything, but she's got the costume next to her on the bed, and that's the end. How did I do?
Great.
All right, as well as you can.
So it's basically 3 timelines, but you could argue that there's even like 4th or 5th timelines, depending on how far apart events are happening.
Right. Yeah, it felt all over the place to me.
Yes, I feel like this is the complete opposite of King in Black, from the mindset of, if you did not read Tom King's run on Batman, you're lost, and it will feel all over, because like I think like that relationship that you see with Catwoman and Joker, you know, about how you're not right for Batman, you're not going to keep boning Batman and be a part. Like you saw that in those issues leading up to Batman, you know. So I think what Tom King is doing is he's saying, this is the story that I wanted to tell. And I think his run was going to go up to like 100 or 10 or something like that. Like, and he's almost condensing now the last, 25, 30 issues into this mini series of, if you know, like what you said in an interview, he said was, I wanted to be able to tell my own story and not have to do what they wanted to throw in with the 5G. So I think this one really hinges on, if you weren't reading what he was doing, you're going to go, wait a second, what's going on? A lot.
I mean, I would take a step further. If you haven't seen Mask of the Phantasm,
yes,
and you didn't read, you know, I don't know. It just felt like, because if you didn't know who Andrea Beaumont is, you wouldn't know what that costume was. You wouldn't know the significance of that. You wouldn't know. I don't know. There seemed like a lot was assumed from a fandom standpoint that you would understand.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely. I think John was talking in the last, when we were talking about King of Black. You were having, you know, comic fans really want to tap into the nostalgia. I mean, Tom King's playing on that nostalgia of Batman fans like me. I read Mask of Phantasm. You know, I watched Mask of Phantasm. I have the first appearance in comics of Mask of Phantasm. Like, it's one of my favorite movies. Like, I love Batman the Animated Series. He's pulling from that. The Sewer King is also another episode of Mask of Phantasm where he's kind of like this, you know, the Oliver Twist kind of world of where he's under the ground and he's running his gang. And so like when they went to that panel, the Batman, it took me back to my childhood right there going, holy crap, that's the Sewer King. I don't know if the Sewer King had been in comic continuity, but it was a Batman the Animated Series. So he definitely is playing on the fanboy nostalgia feelings on some of those that you can get lost in really easy and go like, who is this guy in the sewer? Why are we here?
Yeah. Gore Vidal, the Batman Annual 2 is still probably my favorite King Batman issue.
Beautiful.
It's really really striking. If you guys have not read it, I would definitely recommend hunting it down and reading it, because it's just a really really amazing story. Yeah, it's interesting because is this in continuity, by the way? Is it like Three Jokers where it's like they can decide to put it in continuity if they choose to?
I think that's what editorial at DC is these days. They don't want to give answers to anything, and even if they could, there's probably nobody there to answer the phone to tell you.
Well, it's true. I think DC, what they've been doing, and they've done it for a while, is they've put out series and say, we'll see what people think.
That's the hottest take we've had in our show in a long time.
Yeah.
Heroes in Crisis was all over the place in the beginning, and it went in and focused and came together. I mean, I obviously speak for Heroes in Crisis in a lot of ways and enjoyed it and would and happily give it praise, but I've never heard somebody feel like that really all gelled together at the end.
Yeah. But I think DC does a lot of that, especially with the Batman universe. At least that's what I'll speak to, because I can't say it for Flash or anything else. DC waits and sees what the fans react. Like, I don't think the Killing Joke was originally supposed to be continuity.
Well, I still think it shouldn't be continuity, because he kills the Joker at the end.
I think, but what I think is, and it's interesting. I had one of these debates of like, and someone's like, you should not debate like conversation. They're like, you should do a YouTube video. And my LCS are like, talking about what is actually in Batman's continuity. Like, what do writers say? Here's the timeline that we follow. And I'm like, man, that's going to be a deep, dark rabbit hole that I'll have to go through. But I think there is truth. Like, I don't know. Like, I think most readers now will take that the Barbara Gordon scene is part of continuity.
Well, right. It has to be, because it has been a lasting physical and mental scar for her throughout the years.
And I think it's going to be a wait and see what they're going to do with Three Jokers. I think it's going to be a wait and see. Do they have that kind of a reel that they had at the end with, of issue 3? Is that going to be a part? I think DC plays that long game a lot of like, hey, we don't know yet, so we're not going to give you answers of if it's continuity or not. We'll let you guys talk, and then we're going to see what you guys say, and then we'll take it in that direction, which benefits our marketing the best and our stuff the best. So,
and the reason I ask is because, same thing goes for Annual 2, which is questionably in continuity. Is that the future of Batman? Because if we already know how his story ends, where is this going? And I guess everybody's story ends with them passing away, but that's what happens in the middle. But we know that he dies as an old man, so that really like takes a lot of pressure and conflict and a lot of the drama out of like what's going to happen to Batman, because we know he survives till he's an old man.
But then this issue has her saying he's dead. So now
when she's old,
but when she's old, so it could play into it of where that is too.
Exactly. I mean, so for me, like, did I find portions of it interesting and intriguing? Yeah. Is Clayman a talented artist? Hell yeah. The guy is freaking
unbelievably good.
I mean, I still say that dude's Lois Lane drawings in Heroes in Crisis are some of the best looking women. Just amazing pieces of art. I was very frustrated by the scatterbrained feel of this, where it's just like bouncing all over the place. I don't necessarily feel like you have to have read a ton of the King run, but you certainly need to know some of the Bat-Cat stuff to really get it. Because for me, it felt far more tied to Mask of the Phantasm than to his run. Because I don't dive too deeply into the stuff that happened in his run beyond the fact that he's got a relationship with Selena. and the dead Alfred thing, which totally I still don't think I understand. Like,
No, and
what
that was
they
a
were trying
very
to-
weird moment in that book too, where
oh my god,
it seemed to be in the same scene that he was saying Alfred is dead,
Right.
and then Alfred was also in the room.
and then Alfred's looking in on him, and I don't know who he's banging in that moment. I can't tell if it's Selena or Andrea.
I think
Right.
it was Selena.
Because obviously if it's Alfred's alive, then it's probably Selena, but like the art is so vague and the hair color is hidden, and I think intentionally probably. But for me, do I want to read more of the rest of this? Sure, I want to see how Tom King wraps this all up. Will I buy all the individual issues? No, I'm not gonna wait and do that. I'm gonna wait and buy a trade in one set and just read the whole thing.
Yeah, and I if it weren't Tom King and if I didn't have faith in him as a writer, I might feel differently.
Right.
But I've like, say what you will about his Batman run or even Heroes in Crisis, which he is not even the biggest fan of himself. He can construct a 12-issue series very, very well, and he does it in a way where there's no accidents in what he's writing. So everything he's doing now is going to pay off. I mean, I assume, judging from his other stuff, that like he's not just putting stuff out there hodgepodge. Like he knows he's putting together this puzzle and that things are going to fall into place.
Well, but I also think that's Tom King's like a gift and a downfall for him is if you talk about what are people's favorite series of Tom King's, you're going to get Vision, you're going to get Mr. Miracle. People are going to start to talk about Strange Adventures now even more. I think Tom King is heralded for what he does on characters and how he writes unique stories, and he kind of goes off the grid with these characters that a lot of people aren't familiar with.
Yeah.
But when you pull it into Batman, which is something that even someone who doesn't read comics knows about Batman's parents dying, like they know those types of things. Like you pull in like Rorschach, I feel like now is a little bit more by getting a little bit like, do I like this? Do I not like this? It's a little bit more of, well, we have our realm of Watchmen that we like. Heroes in Crisis, we have our heroes in our realm that we like. We don't like it when you mess with our heroes. I think that goes back to what John was saying a little bit earlier in the show. Tom King loves to mess with what people love, and he also will still give you what you love too, like the nostalgia of the stuff. And so like his heralded series are like Vision, are going to be Mr. Miracle, are going to be stuff where readers like me who love comics, I don't know a lot about Mr. Miracle. I don't know a lot about, so I don't care if it's like this isn't what Batman would do as much.
Yeah.
So I think that's a gift and curse of him.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Yeah, that's an interesting way to think about it.
So are either of you thinking of getting the other individual issues for this run?
I'll get it all. I mean, you know this from the get-go. I love Tom King's stuff. I'm a big supporter of him. I like his Batman run better than Snyder. There's your hot take. I knew you were waiting for me to say it.
I'll say it too.
I think Snyder's run is overrated.
I agree. I think he had 2 story arcs that were great, and then everyone forgets about everything else. So I love Tom King and I love Batman. So I'm going to follow it from that aspect, hands down. He taps into the nostalgia. Like I said, when I saw the Sewer King from Batman the Animated Series, when I saw they were promoting the Phantasm from as soon as they released this, I was like, I'm all about this. Like I went to 3 shops seeing if there was a Phantasm cover because I didn't even look in advance because I was like, I want that book if there is.
Yeah. I thought there was supposed to be, but maybe not for issue 1. Drew Manchu with a good point. DC has become the trade weight brand. It suits them that they're moving away from the flock market because so often these stories are much better presented in collected format. Yeah, I mean, I think really their strength lies in these miniseries or maxi series that they're doing lately. You know, even DC's, which I'm not a fan of, is pretty successful for them, but
Absolutely.
could be read. They're all miniseries, so you can read them in a trade.
And I think that applies to Tom King's writing a lot too.
Sure.
He is a very. I read Mr. Miracle in trade. I didn't read it in floppies. I read Vision in trade. I'm reading Strange Adventures. I'm reading Rorschach. I'm reading Batman, Catwoman. in singles, and I think that will play in. I think that plays into it too. I read Heroes in Crisis in singles.
I will say though, going back to the 3 timelines of this issue, I thought to myself after I finished it, I read a lot of indie comics that mess with time and mess with like alternate ways to tell stories. So like I feel like I'm pretty well versed in being able to read alternate narratives, and this threw me off.
Oh yeah.
It like there were moments, number of times where I was like, I don't know where I'm at. I don't know what's going on. I don't know which version of Catwoman this is, or who even is talking to who. So they kind of geek. Wait, do you have to have a beard to be here tonight? You do.
Yeah,
but not every night.
Gray Matter Hulk is asking earlier on. He said, "Is Bruce Wayne dead, or is Batman dead? Is it Bruce's son?" They don't really explain any of it. She only says Batman's dead. He's no longer here to stop me. I'm gonna do what I want to do, and I'm gonna get to be the one to kill you for what you've done. And
right. It's kind of vague in this issue, but if Annual 2 is supposed to be in the continuity of this book, then Bruce is dead.
So just wanted to answer that for him. I will say, like, I do want to know what happens. I do want to be hearing more of it. I like Alec is saying, like, I felt like it was not intentionally confusing, like where they were trying to leave a little mystery. I think it was flawed in design, that it was so confusing for people. That all 3 of us have read King's Batman. All 3 of us enjoy King's style. All 3 of us kind of know what's happening here. And we're all 3 like, this is a bit confusing and a bit sloppy and a bit messy. And so I'm that frustrates me.
Can someone take a screenshot of this? Because Drew Manchu said he agrees with me about something.
So, I mean, I will definitely read it all. And I'm curious to hear, like, people like Greg, who are reading the floppies as it goes along, comment on how the story is progressing, and if it's getting less flawed, if it's getting more streamlined, is it getting more intense? I want a ramp up in the intensity. And there's moments in here where you get that, like the Joker reveal and some of those moments, but there's also a ton of it where it's just like you're just blasting along. Like there's no impact in the key moments when they happen.
Yeah, because you don't build to them. You are thrown into them from other moments.
Yeah.
But damn, the book looks gorgeous.
Oh man. Well, I mean, you even said Clayman, that panel with Catwoman, like his Clayman stuff, like, like before City of Bane, when they're on the island, like Clayman can draw beautiful scenery and beautiful people.
Well, and beyond that, it's like that panel of Catwoman that John pointed out, it's not just a great drawing because Catwoman looks sexy. It's a great drawing because there's sex in her eyes.
Right.
Like there is a sensuality to her face that like a lot of people can't pull off.
Yeah. Like it doesn't, and that's the thing is like he doesn't have to draw like, nudity or things like that to make it sexy. It is like you said, the eyes are, it's those types of things, those details, which I think Clayman can draw fantastically.
Well, it's just like the insanity in Joker's eye when he's biting. There's some scary fear drama there, just like there's in her face, right?
That drawing of Joker bothered me a little bit because
out of context.
Like a wig is not going to change your appearance that much.
Right.
Like he looked like a very normal old man, and then he takes his wig off, and all of a sudden he looks like
they did a little green and red around the lips
and the eyes.
Yeah.
So
that was having a double ad for Future State. Having the double ad of Future State right in between there was a little weird placement.
And the ad for Snickers or whatever it
I always-
was, where
that's
like
my
the
constant.
where the first panel is literally Batman, and you're like, wait a minute,
Yeah,
why is this
you
suddenly
go
look bad?
They're running on the rooftops, and she's having a little grandma moment, and then you turn the page and you get the Snickers ad, and it's Batman running on the rooftop, and you're like,
I
wait,
hate those Snicker ads. I get so confused.
they're the worst. They're the
I'm like,
worst.
why is Black Lightning in this all of a sudden? I don't know, but if Tom King's doing it, I guess I'll read it.
So overall, I think I would probably give this issue a 6, maybe a 6.5. I've hoped for it, but I have a lot of frustration with it.
I'm gonna go with a 7.5 with an asterisk again. Like I think it is the same. It's the same thing with King and Black. If I'm giving, I think the asterisk is me giving Tom King the benefit of the doubt a little bit more here. Of I like the idea of where he's going, and now I can't wait to see what he does with Andre Beaumont and the Phantasm, and where is this going to be this kind of love triangle thing? I don't know. I'm here for it, but it could go. Issue 1 could get lessened by it.
Yeah, I'm right in between you guys. I'm like at a hard 7 without an asterisk, just because even if this series becomes a masterpiece, I feel like this issue on its own doesn't especially succeed. Whereas I think King and Black as an issue on its own succeeded if the rest of the story is good. Whereas this was more like, yeah, in as a piece to the whole, it might work really well, but as an issue by itself, I feel like it was just passable for me.
Well, I think is what a lot of what we were saying about Deceased issue 1. Like a lot of people are like Deceased is so amazing, but we understand issue 1's not very good. And I'm like, well, yeah. So even if it evolved into something really great, you have to admit that issue one was a sloppy mess. It's a sloppy mess. Like 3 different artists, and the styles don't even come close to matching. So in the same way, like this might evolve into something really amazing that wraps up King's Batman run beautifully, but it's not starting off that way.
Yeah, I mean it's certainly intriguing. Like it definitely. What's that?
Bearded Greg's. I want to
Veggie tray. I mean, we're on the show. You can drop those jokes verbally.
I know, but
I know it was in reference to the chat. I get it
because you guys have moved on to something else, and I want to be like, let me interrupt Alec in his deep thought here, just so I can say, I want a veggie tray ad.
No, that's kind of our brand. Go for it. So yeah, that's about all we got, I think, for tonight, right? I mean, if nothing else, like looking at 12 issues of Clayman's art is going to be a treat.
Yes. Oh yeah,
definitely. But I do like. I would prefer. I mean, if the issues are all going to be, what was this one, $5.99? Like
something like that, yeah.
I don't. The Black Label price is steep, and I would just rather, it's going to be $20-$30 for the trade. 12 issues at $6 is going to be way above that. So,
and I know that King and Black was more pages in this, but again, constant criticism of Marvel. The cover quality, paper quality of the King and Black for the price of the book that DC put out is like, it felt flimsy and crappy in my hand.
Yeah.
Whereas Batman Catwoman felt like, it's like a nice cardstock. It just feels better.
Well, mine's literally cardstock because it's a sketch cover.
Yeah. Excuse me.
I saw you bought that. Are you gonna get on that?
I don't usually buy this kind of. This was a moment where I was like, I'm going to read this one issue and buy the trade. I was pretty much sure of that going in. And what a fun opportunity to get somebody that I really like to draw something cool on the cover of a Batman Catwoman. Not a book that it's ever going to be like, oh, I need it in a 9/8 and I need it. No, but it's going to be like, I could have some artist that I really dig do something cool from the Batman universe on this and just keep it in the collection as a cool cover.
Stay Puff with a comment. Marvel will always have toilet paper quality for comics. Yeah. Just go back to newsprint if you're going to do that, because at least it'll smell nice. Well, anyway, what do you guys have going on that you'd like to promote or plug?
I dropped an interview today on my YouTube channel with Zach Kaplan.
Nice.
of Join the Future and Eclipse, which are great series if you haven't checked it out. Friday I'll drop something with the missus again for John. It's naming X-Men characters. And then I'm starting a new show on Friday night on Hero and the Kids channel. It's Hero and the Kid, me, Jason from Heroes to Icon. We got Comics Will Break Your Heart. She's going to be on with us, and we've got Fire Guy Ryan. He's on our show, so we're just doing a kind of comics and review show for the week. So that's happening this Friday, and then Saturday night I'm talking movies with this jabroni over here. And then every Monday, Wednesday, Friday I drop content on my channel.
Wow, so productive.
I'll cry.
Just like John. Then
well, once I hit 1,000 like John, I'll stop doing edited content. And
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's what I did.
On everyone's stream and be on YouTube 24/7 like John does.
Yeah,
So
I tricked everyone into subscribing to my channel by making edited content, and then I hit 1,000. I'm like, peace out.
Monetize, bitches.
The problem is that you can't gain anything from the monetization if you don't put out content, which clearly, because I don't care about monetizing my channel.
So yeah, I got my edited video dropping tomorrow. Part of the Tag Team Thursday. We're gonna do that poll list, looking ahead to next week, and then nothing. Oh, Friday. Nothing Friday. Saturday, but Saturday night we're talking about one of my favorite character actors, Ian Holm, passed away this year, and we're looking back as our another one of our remembering great artists who passed away, and looking back at some phenomenal movies from a real underappreciated character actor.
he's a fantastic character. Like if I guarantee you half the chat we could say Ian Holm, then like who? And then we'll just name off who he's in. You're like, oh yeah, I know who he is. It's fantastic. So,
and if anybody wants to join, we're looking for an Ian Holm fan who wants to just talk about their favorite Ian Holm movies. So Saturday night,
very cool,
lock and loaded, and then D&D with the boys Sunday. We're still alive, like Havoc. I lost my freaking finger, but I'm still going. I'm still there.
JP lost an eye. Big Will's a ghost.
Yeah,
you guys did not pick up on my hints for the fur thing last week.
Right. That would be my bad. But I honestly,
you still haven't gotten past the first room of this dungeon.
No, we have not at all. That's thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I guess that's about it.
Oh, Drew Man Chew, the $2 super chat. Thanks, going straight to charity.
Thanks, brother. Much
appreciate it.
Next week we were looking at some the sequel to Crossover issue 2 drops. So I think we'll probably be talking a little crossover next week, but I'm not sure what else we both end up grabbing next week. So
yeah, we're much more free form these days with book club. So we'll kind of talk about what strikes our fancy the day of, but unless something big comes out like this, that we definitely want to talk about. As for me, I got D&D, got this show. I am going to be on Lamer Frame on
Tuesday
on Just Rican's channel next week. So I get to embarrass myself by talking a big game in the chat on that show, and then show up and really drop the ball. So we'll see how that goes.
Alec, you're replacing me. I'm stepping out.
Oh,
I'm stepping out this week because we're on the big dogs played, and that week.
Yeah, it's an all stars week.
All stars week.
I mean, last week I lost to my wife, so I'm definitely not.
You got to do better than that, Fred.
She's never going to let you hear the end of that one.
Flintstone was beautiful.
That was an amazing piece.
It was the best friend, but she had color, and everyone's like, "Oh, color."
Otherwise, we will see you back here next week, or not here on John's channel next week. And in the meantime, everyone stay safe. Have a great night, great day tomorrow, and never turn your back on the ocean. Goodbye.